Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swananoa Valley. My name is Rochelle Broom, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. We are a welcoming congregation and united on the side of love and justice. We like to say we don't have to think alike to love alike. May this time we spend together today in this place make us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism, I encourage you to take note of our mission statement, which is printed on the front of the order of service. We also work to promote and practice the 8 principles, which are printed on the inside of the order of service. It's our tradition to welcome first and second time visitors and those of you who may not have been here for a while to stand, if you're comfortable, and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. How about on this side of the house?
I'm here with my sister Ann, who's from Newport News, Virginia, visiting for a couple of weeks, and we love having her.
Welcome.
These are my new neighbors from Earth Haven. I'll let them speak for themselves.
I'm Eleni, and I came from South Carolina, Hilton Head Island. I was there for a couple years.
I'm Jeffrey, Hilton Head Island too. We just got up here, it's been 2 weeks today, so I'm finding my way around the mountains.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Carrie Schmidt, and I just moved here about a week ago.
Anyone else on this side?
I'm Kathy Seeley, and I live in Knoxville. I'm on my way to visit a friend in Burnsville.
Welcome. Did I miss anybody on this side of the house? And how about on this side of the house?
Mark Petriquin, visiting my family. I'm from Aberdeen, and I attend the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Harford County in Maryland.
Did I miss anyone else? All right, great. Well, welcome to you all. If you are interested in learning more about us, or you'd like to receive our newsletter, or find out how you can be more involved in this community, there's a white card in the back of the pews. There's also some cards that can be found out on the table in the foyer. Please fill out a card and leave it at the front so that we may get in touch with you. It's also our practice to acknowledge that the land where we are now gathered has not always been ours to call home. UUCSB acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the ancestral home of the Cherokee and other indigenous people. The Cherokee, through stewardship, understanding, and conservation, survived and thrived in this land. We acknowledge their enduring connection to their homeland. Now, if you would please, silence your cell phones so that our service may begin.
Because you're getting into the video. I'm sorry. Can you not move that way because you're getting into the video? You're watching the video.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I want to begin with this because I don't want to have to say it again. It's terrible. And so I'm going to tell you who told me this. Robbie Madden asked me today that if you don't drink eggnog, but she didn't ask me today, but she sent this to me. I deleted it immediately. I didn't want to get a virus from it. She said, if you don't drink eggnog on Christmas, does that mean you are agnostic? I know, it's Robbie. So, in that positive way of starting the service, our opening words are from Peter Samosky, and he writes, "May this flame that we light remind us that every one of us can bring the light of love to the world. May this clear flame be a symbol that every heart can burn bright with joy and peace and harmony," and we can even add humor now. "May the wisdom of ages speak to us through this flame, and most of all, stay inside us and every one of us can and are a blessing to this world. And so with that in mind, I invite you to join in singing our opening hymn this morning, number 151, I Wish I Knew How. Practice that and do it again the first of the year. Now we got the rhythm, we got it going. It's a good song. It's a good song. So, our reading this morning is in the back of the gray hymnal. It's reading number 659. And we'll read it responsibly. It's by Brother Walt Whitman. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
And let us do this. The sum of all known reverence I add up in you, whoever you are.
Those who govern are there for you. It is not you who are there for them.
All architecture is what you do to it when you look upon it.
All music is what awaits from you when you are reminded by the instruments.
The sun and stars that float in the open air, the apple-shaped earth, and we upon it.
The endless pride and outstretching of people, unspeakable joys and sorrows.
The wonder everyone sees and everyone else they see, and the wonders that fill each minute of time forever.
It is for you, wherever you are. It is no farther from you than your hearing and sight are from you. It is hinted by nearest, promised, greatest.
We consider Bibles and religions divine. I do not say they are not divine. I say they all have grown out of you and may grow out of you still.
It is not they who give the life. It is you who give the life.
Will you seek afar off? You surely come back at last in things best known to you, finding the best, or as good as the best.
Happiness, knowledge, not in another place, but this place, not for another hour, but this hour.
Doesn't need an intro today.
Doesn't need an intro. Right. Okay. Very nice. All right, this is the time in the service when we invite you to come up and share a joy, a concern, or sorrow, or all of the above. And Diane will light your fire, and I have no words. The floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Anna Marcel de Armanis, and I have a couple of sorrows. One is from Ray, saying he really misses being here. He really wanted to come, and I wouldn't let him. He has pneumonia, and I think he needs to stay home for a while. And the other thing, I just keep being surprised at how much this is knocking me down, but I know all of the world is mourning Bell Hooks, and she's like a woman who just introduced me to revolution and love in the same sentence, and I just can't imagine that she could die, but I miss her.
I'm Susan Hurley, and Ann Silman isn't with me today. I talked with her this morning, and she thinks she's experiencing some bronchitis. She has breathing problems anyway, so she's trying to take care of herself. She's waited for a long time to visit with her family. She was taking a plane on Wednesday, very excited about that, to go see her family. So please have her in your thoughts and prayers. She's such a wonderful, wonderful part of this congregation. And there are Christmas cookies out in the portico, so please have some and take some home. Find something to take some home with you if you care to. And shameless plug, they are delicious.
The first person I met when I moved to my condo community 5 years ago was a close friend, is a close friend of Helen Bell's, who many of you know. And her name is Flo, and she is in her late 80s, and she fell ill this past week and had to cancel her Christmas stuff and so forth, so just keep her in your thoughts. And a candle of gratitude for Susan Hurley and her Christmas cookies.
Hello, I'm Liz. I would like to light a candle of gratitude for the universe because I have been blessed over and over with a project plan to change things and move into the new year with a new job and a new purpose. And it just is falling into place, every single little thing. And I brought a friend today who is just the cream of the crop. I mean, that just is the topping. And I also would like to light a candle of hope and sorrow for my best friend. She is about 8 weeks pregnant, and she went in Tuesday for an ultrasound, and they found no heartbeat. So we're struggling through this week and into next week, and I have to leave her to visit family for 2 weeks. So that's great. We're going home to Memphis after 5 years of not seeing anyone much. But I hate to leave her, so please keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
I'm Carrie Schmidt, and I moved here from Massachusetts a week ago, and my joy is that I just love it here so far, and I think I found the perfect place to retire from. I closed my psychotherapy practice and knew I wanted to be here. And I guess my concern is that I'm very much alone. I have no family, and I did meet a realtor that I think may help me look for a house, but other than that, I'm really on my own, so, you know, any connection that I can make here will be very wonderful, so thank you.
Schmidt, I think you'll make some connections here, almost assuredly. Welcome.
Thank you.
All righty. Peaks and valleys this time of year. It can be joy to the world for some of us, and for some of us it can feel like the end of the world. This is the cycle of life, and that's why we have community, so we can kind of weather these storms. So having said that, for any of you, and for all of you, for whatever reason, that you decided not to come up and share, know that we keep you in our hearts and minds. I want to say something. Thank you. Well, you're a psychotherapist. That doesn't always mean, but I love when people ask for what they want. You know what I mean? And it's like you didn't go out and then say, no one came over to talk to me, and you said, this is what I need. This is healthy. And I thank you for saying that, really. And so, I want to share with you, sometimes we become human doings instead of human beings, and that's what we're going to talk about in the sermon today. And sometimes, though, we don't know when we're tired. We don't know when we're fatigued. Sometimes we don't even know when we're really suffering. And so what I'd like to do today is share with you some wisdom. This is a meditation. It's called For One Who is Exhausted by Brother John O'Donohue. Another brother you can't go wrong with for putting their pulse on the ethos, what it means to live as a human being in these bodies. And so what I want you to do, of course, we're going to have our quiet time, but take a couple deep breaths and let these words kind of sink in. If you're tired, and I know some of you are, feel it. Embrace it. This is the time and place to do it. When the rhythm of the heart becomes hectic, time takes on the strain until it breaks. Then all the unattended stress falls in on the mind like an endless, increasing weight. The light in the mind becomes dim. Things you could take in your stride before now become laborsome events of will. Weariness invades your spirit. Gravity begins falling inside you, dragging down every bone. The tide you never valued has gone out. And now you are marooned on unsure ground. Something within you has closed down, and you cannot push yourself back to life. You have been forced to enter empty time. The desire that drove you has been relinquished. There's nothing else to do now but rest and patiently learn to receive the self you have forsaken in the race of days. At first, your thinking will darken and sadness take over like listless weather. The flow of unwept tears will frighten you. You have traveled too far and too fast over false ground. Now your soul has come to take you back. Take refuge in your senses. Open up to all the small miracles that you simply rushed through. Become inclined to watch the way of rain when it falls, slow and free. Imitate the habit of twilight, taking time to open the well of color that fostered the brightness of your days. Draw alongside the silence of stone until its calmness can claim you. Be excessively gentle with yourself. Stay clear of those who are vexed in spirit. Learn to linger around someone of ease who feels they have all the time in the world. Gradually, you will return to yourself, having learned a new respect for your heart and the joy that dwells far within. Slow time. Exquisite. And now, while our minds are one for this brief moment, we're kind of all focused, I leave you with the eloquence of silence. And so it is. There's one joy I wanted to mention. I know it didn't get to everybody. Evan sent some videos. He's having a wonderful time in Ireland. It looks like it's cold there, though. I probably would have gone to a beach, but that's just me. But he looks great. You know, his hair's short and he's getting a little. They all look very happy, and I just wanted to pass that on to you, and we have another treat from the choir.
Oh, did you want to do all three?
You know, see, for those of you who think I'm in it for the money, I'm not. And we don't set this up. Linda always, it's like, she always reminds me, it's like we rehearsed it. But we would like to ask you for a little donation for, thank you. Just so you know, we don't ask for money on Christmas Eve. So when I don't ask, don't think I forgot. But today, we do. And I thank you. Wow. And I take vitamin B. It's supposed to be for your memory. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Oh, boy, have mercy. So then, okay.
Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, prospero año y felicidad. Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, prospero año y felicidad.
Thank you for your generosity. I gotta stop forgetting to ask you. What is it? Okay, let's do this. There's a football game on at 1 o'clock. It must be over. So, I have known many people who I would classify as healers. And I'm one of them. As you know, I do Reiki and other energy work. And some of the folks that I know are energy healers, some are body workers, some are psychics, some are therapists and counselors and social workers. Some work in healthcare, and some are just everyday folk they just have a knack for making people feel good, feeling better. Most, if not all of them, are good listeners. You know, they check out your body language and the neuro-linguistic programming. I do all that sometimes too. But they're good listeners, going beyond what you're saying into what you're not saying. Wonderful folk. And yet most of them, many of them, at least at one time or another, did not or do not know how to take care of themselves. That's the title. When are we enough? Or taking them some time. It took me a while, and I still fall back into to establish these boundaries when I need to take care of myself. Now, therapists, he works with addiction, folks with addiction, Gabor Mate talks about the times, and I want you to hear this, when problems are unsolvable or not fixable. And that there is precisely during these times that the healer is faced with the predicament of trying to solve something that is not solvable. Now that can be relationships, that could be addiction, that could be whatever your deal is. In an article in an online magazine called the Psychotherapy Network, I was reading it the other day, and he says that this weight of trying to fix the unfixable is what is most stressful to the healer. Now, I would also venture to say that it's whether you're a healer or not, and all of us are on some level. It affects all of us. So he goes on to say that for him, and I love this because I've used the term, especially when working as a chaplain at Mission, there's no such thing as compassion fatigue. See, I never thought about that. He says, I'm sure you've heard the term, and of course I've used it here. He writes that no one gets worn out from compassion fatigue. No one gets tired of being compassionate because compassion is who we are. It's part of our very nature. And so we don't get tired of being ourselves. He says we get tired of and from not being ourselves. This is where the fatigue comes from. I found it very interesting. And so the problem is not with compassion being directed towards our clients, our friends, our family, and others, but with the lack of compassion for ourselves. It reminds me of the phrase, love your neighbor as yourself. We all say the first couple words, but the last 4 words we don't use. We don't do that. We don't love your neighbor. But we don't talk about, it's seldom spoken. And so nothing wrong with that in some ways, but it does stand to reason that if we cannot truly love ourselves, or at least try to, if we cannot at least treat ourselves with some type of compassion, it stands to reason that you really can't do that with anyone else. You can't walk right and talk left. You can't lead where you haven't been. So he goes on to ask the question, And he says, who says that we have to manage the unmanageable? By its very definition, the unmanageable cannot be managed. The unfixable cannot be fixed. I get it, the whole Protestant work ethic, but there's flaws in that. We cannot, what do we make it mean about ourselves when we cannot fix the unfixable? Now that's worth looking at. In the Bible, in Mark, chapter 6, verse 5, it tells us Jesus, there were some folk he couldn't heal because of their lack of insight and because of their lack of faith. But there were some people it says he laid hands on a few people and then he had to move on. Some people he couldn't really get to. And so Gabor talked of a time when he was giving, this is beautiful, he was giving a retreat for healthcare professionals in Peru. Psychiatrists, psychotherapists, counselors, physicians from all over the globe had come to Peru, and this wasn't the first time, and attend and take part in ceremonies led by these Peruvian shamans, and they were following the ancient traditions. Gabor says that over the years that he had assisted people and he guided them at these retreats, and he witnessed, he says, I have witnessed great physical and spiritual and mental transformation take place with the attendees. He saw this. However, he said he had never experienced the same deep visionary shamanic experiences as the folk he was working with. So he arrives at the retreat, and he knows it's just business as usual. Nothing much is going to happen with him. So the first night of the ceremony, he's with 23 other people participating. 6 shamans come in chanting. And of course, he says, nothing happens to him. The next morning, the shamans come and visit him. And they say, you know, we cannot have you in the ceremony. You have such a dark, dense energy that our chants don't penetrate it. And not only that, it's dampening the effect on the work of everybody else. So he was fired from his own retreat. He was completely sequestered from others, and one of the shamans was assigned to work with him over the course of 5 ceremonies, while the others worked without him. The shamans knew nothing about his history. They knew nothing about how he had been born a Jewish infant in Hungary and spent the first year of his life under Nazi thuggery and occupation. They didn't know of his family's experience of genocide. They knew nothing of this, but they felt it. What's the old saying? What you are speaks so loudly I can't hear you. They were just relating to the energy, because that's what we all are, that they were picking up from him. And they told him, when you were very small, you had a big scare and you're not over it yet. They added, you've been working with a lot of traumatized people and you have absorbed their energies and you haven't cleared that yet. And Gabor said they laughed. And they told him that, that when they heard all these healthcare workers were coming from around the world, they thought their job would be easy because they said, you know, at least these folk would be able, they know how to, you know, take care of themselves. But all of the groups that had come to them, this group was the heaviest bunch. None of them had done work on clearing their stress. You see, we are so busy loving our neighbor, which is a good thing, serving our neighbor, but we're absorbing the stress of our clients I'm even talking about the stress that we have, our neighbors, our congregants, our world, but not showing the need for compassion for ourselves. And in a lot of ways, it's easier to take care of other folk. It's easier for me to take care of you. See, I don't have to look at me. I don't have to look at me because it's too painful. So I'm going to look out for you. And I'm a good guy because I'm helping you, right? Wrong. The problem is not that we're compassionate toward others. We aren't compassionate toward others. We tell ourselves we must fix the unfixable. Because Gabor had not taken the time to clear the big scare out of him, he was taking that experience into everything he did. And these folks picked up on it. His life was under threat. In an effort to save his life, his mother gave him away to a stranger when he was 1 year old. His spirit's just been on the planet for 1 year. Just still trying to get used to Nazi Germany. Sometimes it's better to go back, I would imagine. He did not see her for 5 or 6 weeks. The message he got was that he wasn't wanted. That's the wound. His mother didn't want him. His mother gave him away to a stranger when he was 1 year old. But that wasn't, it wasn't that he wasn't wanted. Giving him to a stranger was one of the bravest and most caring acts she could have performed, Gabor said as an adult, but that's not how an infant perceives it. What do you do when you're not wanted? When you feel that? I went into ministry. He went into medical school. I had to work through a lot of stuff to not let this be my identity. I have other interests, I do other things. The problem for all of us is the belief that we have to justify our existence. Now, religion helped with that, Orthodox religion, because see, you're not worthy. Someone would have to get beat up and spit on all night and die on a cross, and even then you're not really worthy, because if he hadn't done that, the problem is that we believe that how we show up is not enough. I'm sure we have all at one time asked the question of ourselves, have I done enough? And many people would probably say, yes, I have. But the deeper question is this, am I enough? Am I enough? Because if not, you're going to be getting on people's nerves, trying to help them when they don't need help. You're going to be trying to plug holes in people and in yourself. You go to your grave like that. It's heavy because if you don't think you're enough in your experience, or if you were taught that in your early experience, consciously or unconsciously, one of the ways of compensating for that is you become what? A helper. I have run from some people who wanted to help me because they couldn't stop. And we helpers, we take on impossible tasks like fixing the unfixable and managing the unmanageable. So we have what Gabor calls helper's syndrome. And it doesn't necessarily originate in terrible events. It can come from messages that are more subtly delivered by social expectations from our family. In fact, our entire social economic system largely runs on the belief that we're not enough. And so we have to accumulate more and more and more and be successful to prove that we are. Freud says that guilt makes civilization works. And I'm not a Freudian, but he was onto something. So does fear. And that's if you want to say what we're doing now as human beings is working. Right? Like the 12 steps say, our best thinking got us here. He says that one of his teachers once sat him down, Gabor, and told him, he said, Gabor, you don't have to keep dragging Auschwitz around with you. I see folk of color who do that. Nietzsche said, don't let your struggle become your identity. It's not that it didn't happen. It's that but you want to try and transcend that. You can get stuck. In other words, you don't have to allow your earlier experiences during a terrible time in history define your view of yourself. I would put it this way, like I said, don't let your struggle become your identity. He said it took me a while to get it. He got it up here, but we know that that's the longest journey, right? From here to here. But it took him a while to penetrate his heart. He said for a long time, he still carried beliefs about the world and himself that had been conditioned by earlier experiences. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. I saw you, John. Thank you. Including the belief that he was not enough. But he didn't have to drag those beliefs around for the rest of his life. It's like having a ball and chain around your leg. So what are you dragging around? The weight is what's creating compassion fatigue. So you have to ask yourself, if I'm not a helper, who am I? What am I if I'm not helping everybody? You may not find an immediate answer to the question, but you want to ask it because you have to know to what extent you identify yourself with your role. Shakespeare was right. All the world's a stage. We have our entrances and exits. We're just merely players. But sometimes you have to remember that the mask you wear is really a mask. What's behind the mask? If the role of helper were taken from you, or if in a crisis the role is deeply challenged, then who are you? If you're in a relationship with someone and you don't know who you are, who do I give to you? I went through a marriage like that. It's not Mickey Mouse. And you can go to your grave like that. Like Willie Loman. You know, I'll just kill myself because I really don't know who I am, so I'll just leave this little insurance policy and I'll turn on the gas in the garage and we'll call it a day. And death of a salesman. Tragic. Gabor has come up with 5 levels of compassion to help support his clients. I'll share them with you. The first one is ordinary human compassion. That is nothing fancy. You know, we talk about the interdependent web. When you suffer, it does affect me. Your suffering affects me because we're what? Connected, sentient beings, rocks, trees, what we do to the planet. 101. Number 2, compassion of curiosity and understanding. It's not enough to feel bad for someone else's suffering. We must attempt to understand their stories and their narratives. Just because you don't get the shot doesn't mean you're selfish. You don't know what that other person went through. It's simple to do that. I was doing it. So I talked to some people. In the case of COVID, we have an opportunity to see what this existential threat has provoked in people, and then work with that material and what it means to them. And we do that with what? Curiosity and understanding. Number 3, compassion of recognition. This is the sense that we are not different from the people that we are relating to or working with. We may have different family of origin experiences, different neuroses, different dysfunctions, but really that's about it. Other than that, with the compassion of recognition, the decision to see our similarities means that we're just 2 people, you and I, 2 people who've experienced adversity, not one better than the other. 4th is compassion of truth. much of what we call dysfunction originates in compensations and adaptations that humans rely on to survive, to keep from feeling the pain of their trouble. I told you about my many friends who served in Vietnam, and you know, they came back here, they were screwed up. Some of them were screwed up before they left. And those survival skills, you know, you get on a plane, you go to San Francisco, you come here, you know, and it's a mess, it's a hot mess. And so the skills that they needed to survive in the jungle, they didn't need them here. But no one kind of said that we have to dial this back a bit. So the next time you call somebody selfish, try to see what's behind that. We must look at this and realize that a lot of pain may come up for people. Gabor says it is not compassionate to shield people from pain that is already in them. You're not helping them. And 5, lastly, compassion of possibility. We're closer to that game. Gabor says, it's the playoffs, I have to say. Gabor says this one is the most difficult for him. It emerges when you don't identify someone with their suffering or pain. Some people would say you see their spirit, you see their soul. That's hard to do. It's hard to do. See past this. But you see the essence of the human being. So in order to do this, you have to do it the optics. You have to do it with clear eyes. He refers to his teacher who told him he was dragging something around, Auschwitz in his case, he couldn't let go of, but he couldn't see that he was carrying it. His teacher could see the possibility of his life, of what his life would be like if he let it go. How many times in your life you look back and there was a friend or there was someone who could see something for you good that you couldn't see for yourself? And that's why he calls this the compassion of possibility. And so as you can see, whether one is a healer or not, it requires a lot of work, peeling the onion, clearing ourselves, because we live in glass houses. Because as long as you believe that you don't need or have the capacity to heal, you're going to project that possibility onto others. Or as the Course in Miracles reminds us, projection makes perception. If I think life is a you-know-what and then you die, what do you think life's going to mirror to me? And if I'm not woke in this sense, I'm going to blame everybody but me. One can go ahead and say that I believe in the possibility of all this, but one must experience and move it inside. It takes continuous work. And when I say, I'm not talking so much in social political terms, but like the Buddha said, I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm aware. I have some self-knowledge. There is never a situation when helping by offering compassion does not help. That's what the Dalai Lama has been telling us. What doesn't help, says Gabor, is taking on the impossible. We can't fix what can't be fixed, but we can be the witness who validates that a person's experience, and thereby we can validate their experience and support the healing capacity that we all hold within. It's not only possible, but it's part of our nature. And you gotta let go of a little bit of control, to let people make their mistakes. Heinous mistakes sometimes. But you don't change people. You only change yourself. And if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. It's funny how that works. At least on this planet. Now, on another planet, there may be another law. But this is not personal. This is the law of life. What I put out comes back. I reap what I sow. It's quantum physics. We're just getting it. Saints and avatars knew this back in the day in a different way. What we can't fix can't be fixed. But just remember, you cannot heal being by doing. Nor should we have to, nor do we have to. We are what? Human beings, not human doings. We are worthy and we are enough. Right here, right now, period. See you Thursday night. All right, let's roll.
Friday night.
No, Thursday night is Christmas Eve.
No, Friday night.
That's what I said. Why don't y'all listen to me? You never listen to me. Thank you. Well, I may see you present. If the light's on and you see me, just pull up. Maybe I'll remember the offering. Thank you. The vitamin B obviously is not working.
Ego, my ego.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Would you bring me some next week? Thank you. Where are we? Sound over all waters. Hymn number 122. Then we go home. Happy and free. Please rise as you are willing and able. Number 122. And it's been fun. Can you show the choir some love and tender? May love hollow every home and every heart. May the light of truth shine bright within you and bless you with wisdom and strength and peace and all of that good stuff. And I'll see you Friday if you can make it. If not, wishing you a merry evening and a happy always. See you next year.